is so much suffering in the world. A widow with 2 small children whose husband died messaged me on Instagram asking, "When will the pain end? And why did God do this to my children and to me? Is it my fault?" Another woman in the Midwest whose father died and whose husband is tired of her moping around the house and bursting into tears asks me, "Why can't my husband understand?" "Rabbi, I was just diagnosed. Pray for me." "Rabbi, the CT scan is tomorrow. Pray for me." And then there was this Instagram message from Lori. It arrived last week. "Rabbi, I loved your post, but my 9-year-old son has so many unfair challenges from his ADHD. We try so hard to help him and see him for his gifts. He has an extremely high IQ, and we try to nurture those gifts. But the tools that have been given to us to help him are not enough, and the medications give him such awful side effects. I find myself angry at God now before the high holy days. How can God make life so hard for a child? A child. Everyone recognizes physical challenges in children, illnesses and other obvious ailments, but a child with behavioral challenges is so stigmatized in our modern Orthodox community. I understand how God can challenge me, but it is breaking my heart as I head into the Yamim Noraim and my child continues to suffer. It doesn't make any sense. My child is beautiful and innocent. How can God start his life this way? I told Lori I would write to her after the high holy days. But I have decided instead to answer her now. Dear Lori, I am so sorry you are in pain and angry with God. I would be angry too if I thought God deliberately chose my innocent child to suffer, to be different. I understand where the idea that God is responsible for your sons and your pain comes from. It is all over the Torah. The idea of an omnipotent God who creates, knows, and controls all. A God who can bring plagues, part seas, build and destroy at will. If God is all-powerful, then you are right. God must be responsible for your sorrow. But that is not the only image of God in the Torah. There is also the God who cannot control humankind, who has to create a flood to wipe out everything and start again, the biggest do-over in human history. There is the God who has to ask Cain where his brother Abel is because God doesn't know. When Cain answers God's question with his own famous question, "Am I my brother's keeper?" God's implied answer is, yes, you are. I am not in control of everyone and everything, and certainly not your moral decisions. In the very first few words of the Torah that are painted right up there above the Bimah, the world that God creates is called good. Not perfect, not great, just good. Making a good world better is up to us, not God. Maybe the most hurtful idea in the entire Torah is that there really is no unfairness in the world. There is only punishment for sin. Good people prosper and bad things happen only to bad people who are apparently good, but who are not actually good from God's view of the whole picture. This idea, too, is all over the Torah, the Talmud, and our Yom Kippur prayer book. Our Yom Kippur prayers about God watching, keeping a ledger called the Book of Life and Death, a Santa Claus like God, making a list and checking it twice, a God who knows who's been naughty and who's been nice, and then doles out rewards or punishments accordingly. This is old-time religion, and it hurts. If this is all you know of the Bible, Lori, how could you not be angry at a God who would punish an innocent child and his mother? How could you not reject a religion and a community that believes you suffer because you only appear to be innocent, but that you are actually morally corrupt? Maybe it will help you to know that I think of God's list-keeping and the books of life and death like as-ifs. In other words, not literally true, but meant so that we live as if they are true, as if there is a God who holds us morally accountable for our decisions. The ancients had to know, because we know that innocent people suffer all the time, but that being a decent, humane human being still matters. I think so much of your pain comes from mistaking metaphor for fact. There is another view of suffering in the Bible that might comfort instead of infuriate you. It is the story of Job. Terrible things happened to this man, Job, who by the Bible's own admission is a blameless man. To me, the book of Job is the most important book in the Bible because it is the first that does not blame the victim, the first to admit that totally innocent people suffer. Job is not Jewish. He's an everyman. He's all of us. You and your son are Job. We're all Job. We all have times in our lives when we feel the unfair, crushing weight of suffering. Why me? Why this diagnosis? Why this toxic relationship? Why this setback? Why this loneliness? Why? God behaves outrageously in the book of Job. He makes a bet with the devil that he can abuse this good man named Job, and this good man will never turn away from God. God takes away Job's wealth, his business, his family, his health, everything. Job's friends say, "You must have been bad." He says, "No, I have not. In fact, I have been faithful to God." Finally, Job challenges God. "I'm a good person, God. Why me?" Did God try to justify himself to Job? No. Instead, God says, "Are you big? I am. Can you keep the ocean waves within the shore? Do you make the sun rise? Try it." In other words, who is little man with his puny powers of thought and reason and judgment to challenge the universe to be righteous as a human would be, to attribute human qualities to the universe The universe is a mystery, and I am it. To which Job replies, I have heard thee, and now I behold thee. He renounces his human judgment in the face of the mystery that is God and the universe. We are sometimes subject to a force far greater and more powerful than we, a force that animates all of existence, of which we are only a grain, a speck, a breath. I want to tell you one of my favorite old stories that I hope really touches your heart. It's about an illiterate shepherd boy who entered the synagogue of the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Hasidism, on Yom Kippur. He didn't know the prayers, so he starts to whistle like he did out in the fields, the one thing he knows he can do beautifully. His whistling is his gift to God. The other worshipers are horrified and they want to throw the boy out. But the Baal Shem Tov stops them and says, until now I could feel our prayers being blocked as they tried to reach the heavenly court. But this young shepherd's whistling was so pure, his gift so sincere, that it broke through and carried all of our prayers to God along with it. None of us can fully know God's ways, but I do know this. There is no relative value to life in Judaism. Every person's life, whether with 10 minutes or 10 decades left to live, is of equal and inestimable value. Your son has a tikkun, a spark of light to bring to the world. We all do. Each of us has our own unique way of living and loving and laughing and caring, unlike anyone else who has ever or will ever live. Yes, your son is challenging and misunderstood, and sometimes in pain, and unique and brilliant and beautiful, with a melody in his soul that soars to the very heavens above. It is Kol Nidrei, the night we seek forgiveness for getting it wrong sometimes. Job's friends got it wrong with his suffering. He was innocent. Some people have gotten it wrong with your son. Maybe you have gotten it wrong with God. We all get it wrong with each other sometimes. I lit a Yortzeit candle last night for my father. We buried him 4 years ago this morning. A few hours later, we went to shul for Kol Nidrei. Jewish law left us no room for Shiva. Instead, my dad's life and his death are forever intertwined with this solemn night, this night of wondering about our own destiny in the coming year. Will we live or will we die? Who or what decides? And does it really matter anyway? My poor dad, I said to Betsy and Aaron, matchbox in hand, holding back the tears. He drew such a bad hand. 10 years of Alzheimer's. 10 damn years. The last 5 in a diaper and a bib, staring from his wheelchair into the distance, listless and lost. Why? I'm a rabbi. I'm supposed to understand these things. I do not. But I do know what God said to Job. And I know what my dad said when we told him about his diagnosis. And what he would say to you, Lori. And what he would have said standing next to me in the kitchen last night as the candle flickered. As is, vocês is. It is what it is. Sometimes, why is the wrong question. A cul-de-sac where we go around and around and around, but can never leave. The older I get, Lori, the more suffering I see and endure. The more I realize that we really are only human. Our vision limited, our understanding incomplete. Betsy, Aaron, and I put our arms around each other. We each shared a memory. I miss him so much. I do not understand why he had to suffer, and I never will. I am, after all. We all are, after all, only human. It is what it is. Yet, in the candle's gentle light, I summon my faith and say Kaddish. Yehei shalom rabba min Shemaya. A great peace descends upon me, affirming that even darkness in its own mysterious way, reveals the beauty of life itself. This comforted Job. This comforts me. I hope it comforts you. Love and Lashana Tova, Lori, to you and to your beautiful, sweet boy.